Hey, welcome back. The big beautiful bill that was signed into law by President Trump, and it's already shaking things up. If you've been trying to figure out what's real, what's hype, and most importantly, what dates you actually need to pay attention to, this is the conversation you'll want to stick around for. There's a lot packed into this one law, and knowing when things start and when they expire can seriously change how you plan your taxes, your healthcare, even your retirement. And there's one surprising change that doesn't kick in until after the next election. So yeah, there's some strategy baked in too. So let's walk through it all together. And before we go further, if you've got thoughts about how this bill could affect you, drop a comment below. I read every single one. And if this kind of breakdown helps you feel a little more in control of your money and your future, go ahead and subscribe. It really supports the channel. So let's talk about what's actually happening now. The big beautiful bill, officially HR 1, was signed into law on July 4th. Symbolic date, big announcement. But not everything kicked in on that day. Some parts started earlier this year, and others don't take effect until 2026 or even later. So then let's start with the tax changes, because that's where most people are seeing it first. If you're working in service, hospitality, construction, any job where tips or overtime are part of the deal, this might be the first year you get a break. Starting with your 2025 tax return, which you'll file in 2026, you could deduct up to $25,000 in tips, and up to $12,500 in overtime pay. Now, that's only if you earn less than $150,000 as an individual or $300,000 as a couple. It's a temporary deduction, though. It only lasts through the 2028 tax year. So you've basically got 4 tax seasons to make the most of it, unless Congress decides to extend it again. So that's something to keep an eye on. Now, here's something not everyone realizes. This deduction doesn't happen automatically. You'll still need to track your tip and overtime income, and it'll need to be clearly reported. So if you're used to just estimating or skipping the record-keeping part, this year it's probably worth tightening that up a bit. And speaking of tax breaks, seniors have something new too. And honestly, this one's a big deal. If you're 65 or older starting in 2025, you'll get an extra $6,000 deduction on top of the standard one. That's not replacing anything. It stacks right on top. And it doesn't matter if you're still working part-time, fully retired, or living mostly on savings. As long as you meet the age requirement, that deduction applies. It's good through the 2028 tax year. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The bill changes how Social Security benefits are taxed, but only for certain people. If you're a senior earning under $75,000, new deductions in the law may mean you won't owe any federal income tax on your Social Security, but it depends on your full income picture. And that's already started. The change applies starting in 2025. But if you're already not paying tax on Social Security because your income is very low, you might not see any difference. And if you're over the income limits, the old rules still apply. It's not universal, but for those in that middle bracket, this could mean hundreds or even thousands saved each year. Now, let's shift for a second to something that isn't getting quite as much attention, but could have long-term consequences. Medicaid changes. This one doesn't start until January 1st, 2027, so you've got time. But here's what to expect. If you're an adult between 19 and 64 and you're on Medicaid, you'll need to show that you're working at least 80 hours a month to keep your benefits. There are exceptions. If you're disabled, a student, or caring for a child under 13, but for most it's going to mean paperwork verification and probably some new hurdles. Also, federal funding for Medicaid is going to start shrinking in 2028. That means states will have to pick up more of the cost. And depending on where you live, coverage could get tighter or harder to qualify for. This is one of those areas where people think, okay, that's years away, I'll worry about it later. But if you're on Medicaid or you're close to someone who is, it's worth planning now. Maybe look into other options. Talk to a benefits counselor, just stay informed so you're not caught off guard. And same deal with SNAP, food assistance. New work requirements begin as early as 2025 and they've raised the age to 64. The exemption for parents is now only for those with kids under 14. And states that have high error rates in managing SNAP payments, they'll start facing financial penalties in 2028. So, yeah, it's not just individuals feeling the change. States are being pushed to tighten things up too. Now, let's shift gears again to the child tax credit. This one is a pretty straight shot. Starting in 2025, it goes up to $2,200 per child. And in 2026, it'll start adjusting for inflation, which means it should keep pace a little better with cost of living. No need to itemize to claim it. That's good news for families who've been stretched thin. Now, for folks in states like California or New York, the SALT deduction cap, the amount of state and local taxes you could deduct goes up to $40,000 starting in 2025. But if you make more than $500,000, that new cap starts to phase out. And just a heads up, this higher cap is temporary. It'll go back down to $10,000 in 2030. Now, here's a twist that surprised a lot of people. The bill actually cuts or phases out a bunch of clean energy incentives. If you're planning to buy an electric vehicle and use the $7,500 federal credit, you'll need to do it before September 30th, 2020. After that, it's gone. Same thing with solar panels, home batteries, and energy upgrades. Those credits begin to phase out in 2026, so if those upgrades were on your radar, it might make sense to act sooner rather than later. And you know what's also changing? While all this is happening, the Social Security Administration is making some big changes too. Starting April 14th, 2025, if you want to create or access an online SSA account, you'll need stronger ID verification. They're doing this to crack down on fraud and scams, especially ones that target seniors. Later in 2025, they're rolling out a pilot program that uses artificial intelligence to help detect fraud and review claims faster. Don't worry, humans will still make the final decisions, but AI is going to help speed things up. That's expected to ramp up more in 2026. There's also an audit program starting next year to catch underpayments and get retroactive corrections sent out. That could be a nice surprise if you've been shorted and didn't know it. Okay, so what about student loans? Starting July 1st, 2026, there's a new cap. Grad students will be limited to borrowing $100,000, and professional students, like those in law or medical school, can borrow up to $200,000. Parent Plus loans are capped at $65,000. There's also a new loan repayment plan coming, but it's not fully spelled out yet. It'll be called the Repayment Assistance Plan, and it's supposed to replace the current mix of income-driven repayment options. So if you're in school now or planning to borrow soon, those timelines matter. Also, colleges with large endowments will face new taxes starting in 2026 with top rates going up to 8%. That might not affect most students directly, but it could impact how some universities handle tuition and aid. Now, here's something we haven't really touched on yet. Government budgets. Starting October 1st, 2025, nearly all federal departments will face a budget cut. Social Security and the Department of Defense are exempt, but most others aren't. So, expect changes in how services are delivered, how fast applications are processed, maybe even how much staff departments have. At the same time, more money is going toward border enforcement. The Department of Homeland Security is already starting to expand the wall, add detention space, and upgrade customs tech. That part of the bill started almost immediately. So then the big picture is this. A lot of what's in the big, beautiful bill is staggered. Some things start right now, others in 2025, 2026, or 2027. And that delay, it's not an accident. It gives people time to adjust, but it also puts a lot of the political heat after the 2026 midterm elections. That's why it's so important to know the timing. Because if you're trying to plan around taxes, healthcare, retirement, or education, you don't just need to know what changed. You need to know when it matters for you. If any of this feels overwhelming, that's okay. You don't need to remember every date right now, but even just having a sense of what's ahead, what to look out for, what's temporary, and what's permanent, that's already a huge step. So if you got questions, or if there's a date you wanted to explain more clearly, drop in the comments. And let me know, what part of the big, beautiful bill do you think will affect you or your family the most? I'd love to hear what's on your mind. And hey, if this helped clear things up or made you feel a little more prepared, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There's a lot more we're going to cover in the coming weeks, and I want to make sure you don't miss out. Take care of yourself, and we'll talk soon.